Have you ever heard the phrase, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me"? Yeah, that saying is not true. It's more so the idea of the pen is mightier than the sword because words have a profound and deep impact on all aspects of our being. And the same is true in our classrooms with our students. The way we talk to our students, the way we respond when they give an incorrect answer, all of the words that we tell them impact their growth mindset, their academic achievement, and their confidence within the classroom. So in today's episode, I'm going to be sharing a few phrases that have changed my outlook on how I approach wording with my students. Let's get started. Welcome to Solving for the Undefined podcast. I'm your host, Johanna, founder of Miss Kuiper's Classroom, the place that equips teachers in creating a healthy math classroom where students can thrive, no matter their academic abilities. But it's not always about the numbers, and that's why I'm here, bringing you the formulas to solve your problems, math and otherwise, plus strategies on cultivating that necessary math mindset. And that's what you can count on. Hello, welcome to episode 38. Today we're going to be talking all about how our words influence our students and how we can tweak our phrasing to make sure that we have a positive and big impact with our students. This whole idea started for me a couple years ago when I saw this random post on Facebook about 3 iterations of ways to ask students if they had questions. It went from, are there any questions? What questions do you have? What questions can I answer? And then the 4th one was, ask me 2 questions. And the background the post gave was, after the teacher gave the directions and asked these different iterations of questions, by the end when she was saying, ask me 2 questions about the activity, more students were taking the time to ask their questions then than when it was already in the activity time. And I really liked this idea of making sure my wording was in such a way that I wanted students to ask me questions because I needed them to be clear on what the activity entailed. So I went with the question, what questions can I answer? If you've ever gotten an email from me or a DM on Instagram, you might have noticed that I use the style there as well of, let me know what questions I can answer for you, because then it puts it back on me of, if something's unclear, it's my fault. Not really my fault, but it's on me rather than on you. But from here on out, I was enthralled with the idea that words could have a major impact on how students worked within the classroom. So I'm going to be sharing 3 major phrases that I have used that changed everything. Let me set up the context for this first phrase. During work time or an activity, a lot of times students will ask the teacher, hey, is this correct? And a lot of times teacher will tell them yes or no. But I will always say, I don't know, can you walk me through your process? I have a couple reasons behind why I do this, and one being I want my students to become independent learners and thinkers and not have to rely on me to have the confidence that their answer is correct, because the majority of the time they are correct. They're just looking for that validation. But I want them to be able to validate themselves rather than look to me or another student for validation. Plus, 2, this gives me an opportunity when that student walks me through their process to see if their answer was not correct during that process, where did it go wrong? And then I have a precise point of where the student veered off the correct way to then use guiding questions based on what I saw. And the other reason I like this phrase, I don't know, walk me through your process, is sometimes a student can have the correct answer, but the way they went about it was incorrect. Or they just stole the answer from someone else, and they're not actually cognizant of why that answer is true. And in both scenarios, once the student walks me through their process, I'm not even going to tell them if they're correct or not. my immediate follow-up is, are you confident in your answer? Or are you confident in this process? And if they say yes, I usually tell them along the lines of, and I'm confident in you. During the beginning of the years when I started using this phrase, a lot of students would tell me no, they're not confident. And so then I would point out specific steps along the way of, well, how did you know this was correct? Or how did you get this? And just guide them through it to help them see if they are correct or not correct. And along the way, across the school year, they become more confident as they understand the process and how things work together. They don't even have to ask me. They become confident in their mathematical abilities and no longer need to rely on me for that validation. So the phrase, walk me through your process / are you confident in your answer, works really well one-on-one or within a group. But if you're asking for students to share out answers in front of the whole class, I found that you have to be very delicate with how you tell a student that they are not correct. So I have 3 different ways that you can respond to students to either help them find the correct answer without making it negative, or just tell them that it's not right. So the first one is telling them not quite. I find that this is less damaging to their psyche than telling them no, or even like a no, but telling them not quite gives them a chance to reconsider what they did. And you could even follow up with, can you walk me through your process? Because then the whole class gets a real-time hearing of what the student did to come up with that answer. And maybe it was just a mathematical error along the way, that their process was correct, but the number was not. And then, boom, they fixed it. We've worked together. They can now be confident in their process. And when they're walking you through their process, if you catch what they did that led them to the incorrect answer, I love using the phrase, I see how your brain is thinking. Because if it's a conclusion that anyone could have made, but it's just a slight misconception of what it was, you can see how their brain is thinking, but it's not quite there yet. And the funny thing about using this phrase in my classroom is that students have never heard it before. I see how your brain is thinking. And they catch on it and they start to use it with each other, and sometimes in a joking, sarcastic way. But they love the idea of, I can see how your brain is thinking. It becomes an inside joke within the classroom, which helps build community and kind of takes the blow or the edge off a student being not correct yet. And the other phrase within this category is, let's reconsider this. And having students specifically look at something, you're not telling them that it's wrong necessarily or that they were incorrect, but let's reconsider this piece right here. Maybe they took -9 times -4 and made it -36. Let's reconsider this. What do you know about multiplying negative numbers? And getting them to reconsider a specific piece of their puzzle, kind of using that guiding questions to help them out. I am interrupting today's episode to tell you that this week on Tuesday and Wednesday, August 2nd and 3rd, is the back to school sale on Teachers Pay Teachers. My store, Miss Kuiper's Classroom, along with a bunch of other teachers' stores, will be set to 20% off. Plus, if you use the code BTS22 at checkout, you can score an additional 5% off your purchase. 2 pro tips when entering a Teachers Pay Teachers sale. 1. Review your previous purchases. Like, actually take the time to write a review, because you earn credits, aka free money, that you can use at checkout. Tip number 2. This is a great time to snag bundles. The reason why it's so great to grab these during a sale is this. If you buy each of the activities within my Geometric Transformation bundle separately, it would cost you $32. But to save you money, I bundled them together to make it $24. That's about a 25% discount. But then the TPT sale comes along, which means you can save up to 25% on an already 25%-ish discount. Now doing the math, because that's what us mathematicians do, that makes the bundle a whopping 48% off, allowing you to get $32 worth of classroom activities for $18. That's a pretty sweet deal. So please make sure you check out the sale starting Tuesday, August 2nd to help you prepare for your school year. Back to the episode. This last phrase I'm going to share ties into what I talked about last week using classroom slides. And I got into a pretty heated rant about how a lot of times when we have a visual in the classroom and a student asks us a question, we will respond verbally rather than show them visually where it was on our slide or our whiteboard where they could actually find the answer. And this phrase will kind of help with that if you are transitioning from replying verbally to kind of using a more non-verbal gesture. So the phrase is using the word this or right here to get students to look. I learned this from Grace Dearborn, the author of Conscious Classroom Management. I took one of her workshops that was like one Saturday, and I loved this idea. So let's say that you have a "we're on this page" little section of your whiteboard, and you wrote page 72 within there, and you told students this is the page number we're on. And then a student asks you, what page are we on? And you responded, page 72. You are discrediting the visual that you have created and making a dependence on you rather than the dependence on the visual, helping the student therefore be independent. So instead, this is how you would respond. After you've already told the class we are on page 72, the page number is right here. Then a student asks what page are we on? You would tell them we are on this page right here. The idea of using the word this makes students look, because you didn't tell them the page number, you told them it was this page right here. So it forces them to look up, see the page number, and then turn to that page. Another example of using the word this is maybe after you've had groups turn and talk about a specific question, and now you're coming back to discuss it as a whole class. You say, I want this many people to share, and you hold up a number. You can't see it, but I'm holding up the number 3. I want this many people to share. It forces students to look up at me, see how many people I want to answer, and then choose whether or not they are going to raise their hand. The first time I used this within my classroom, it was so amazing to watch. When I said, I need this many people to answer, the amount of heads I saw go whoop was awesome. Just like went from looking at their desk to up at me and looking at my hand to see what number I was holding was absolutely fabulous. And this can carry over to using those exit directions or to-do list slides when you are releasing students for an activity. If a student asks you a question after you've already gone over it, you can just tell them right over here. And make sure to use a palm down full hand gesture instead of just pointing. Something about pointing is considered rude, so just make sure you use a full hand to gesture, palm away from students, and that just gives it more credibility. I'm not sure the psychology behind it, but I use it frequently and fervently. It is a powerful gesture, whether you are turning to point at something using a full hand or gesturing to the class, using a full hand is the best policy. Anyway, turning to show them on the screen where it is, even if you're from a distance, pointing to it with your hand right here. Can you read this one for me? Can you find where your question is answered on the screen or on the board? Giving them a place to look and helping guide them to, in the future, when they have one of those clerical questions, they know where to look first before asking you. And two, if they ask a clerical question or a logistical question that isn't academic, and it's not on the screen or your exit directions, write it on the whiteboard. That way, if another student has it, instead of having to verbally tell them, you've written it on the board now, and now you can gesture to it because it's there now. In wrapping this episode up today, we talked about phrases that influence students that can have a positive impact on their growth mindset, their academic abilities, and their mathematical confidence. We talked about walk me through your process. Are you confident in your answer? Not quite. Let's reconsider this. I see how your brain is thinking, and using the word this to get students to look. And if you would like a free pre-made editable template for these classroom slides, I have a freebie that you can download that will have the what they are, examples of it, how to use them, and a template for you to use in your classroom. I'll leave the link down in the description as well as the show notes on my website. And with that, I'll calculate later. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. To find all the links and resources to things talked about in this episode, head on over to MissKuipersClassroom.com and click on podcast.